The date is set for Diego Pavia's hearing. It's going to be exciting. Buckle up.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, Vandy's next two opponents have important games this weekend. However, Vandy has some work to do to improve this offense and get guys healed. That's the most important. They look ahead to the offseason as well, but one important note there is they have set a date to hear Diego Pavia's case versus the NCAA. So as they're making decisions, quarterback is in high priority based on this decision. That case will take place December 4th at 1:30 p.m. So that'll be fun. That'll be something that I'm sure everyone's going to be anticipating with great, it's just going to be, everybody's going to be on kind of pins and needles to see kind of what happens there as far as what they're going to rule about Diego Pavia. Is he going to be back? And, I've talked all week about the impact that he's had and Kurt Page and I, if you want to hear our conversation, our back and forth, go check out yesterday's episode where we discuss, eligibility stuff, he should get that extra year, JUCO is kind of more of a prep year because of how those things are typically organized and oriented. So, it's community college. And so I think it's a lot of people treat it like a post-secondary opportunity anyway. And it should be that. And then, you go to a 4-year and you should have those 4 years to earn your NIL potential. Even if the NIL is small, you still have that potential to earn something because every program has it in some form or fashion because there are boosters, there's businesses around in every town and they want to support the team. So, we talked at length about that. So go check that out. But I was kind of curious as to when they were going to set the date. I felt like they were going to do it sooner rather than later. December 4th happens right before the transfer portal window. So that's, that's going to be, that's going to be beneficial for them to make decisions. So that's, I'm happy about that. I don't know. I can't predict how it's going to go. The NCAA usually has ruled in favor of some of this NIL stuff because I think they do want good publicity. I think they want to do. I think they've kind of opened themselves up for some other things if they don't possibly, and I think they're trying to avoid some of that. I would just like them to take a stance one way or the other if they're going to count JUCO or not. If JUCO is not going to count, that's going to dramatically shift how JUCOs are treated in the future. Like it's going to be, okay, you can't qualify, go to JUCO, qualify, and then come and treat it like a prep school because prep schools aren't counted towards your eligibility. And JUCOs are basically prep schools now. I think, there's a couple of leagues that play real junior college football. That's Mississippi and Kansas. And then there's pockets of schools like California, their JUCO is non-scholarship. So they kind of do some things differently and they have to recruit more locally because guys can't afford to live in California and not have scholarship money and everything that, financial aid wise that they can get. So it's kind of one of those things where the situation kind of dictates, okay, well, we got to, this is got to be a thing. But Diego Pavia, I think, is going to be a pioneer in how they look at junior college eligibility. And so, to me, I think he wins this case, but neither ruling would really surprise me. Like, I think the NCAA would want to, I think they want to rule and try to keep some sort of level of consistency. But, I wouldn't shock me one way or the other, but I'm rooting for Diego. I think Vanderbilt could use Diego Pavia And they definitely want him back for another year. And Diego Pavia definitely wants to come back for another year because he's trying to kick the can down the road on his earning potential, because the NFL, it could be an option, but for a guy like Diego Pavia, he's not going to play quarterback in the NFL. So what is he going to do? How is he going to fit in? He's unsure about that. And if he can guarantee himself one more year of NIL revenue at a place like Vandy in the SEC and a place like Nashville, he's going to do everything he can to take advantage of that. And I certainly don't blame him, because Vanderbilt can be good. They've shown now, hey, we can be good. They still have a limited roster. Clark Lea still got a limited roster. You know, they got a late jump on a lot of this portal stuff because he wasn't sure what was going to happen. He was definitely on the hot seat. He had to make some changes. And I think they just kind of, all those things kind of happened where, okay, well, we didn't have a full offseason devoted to, hey, we're going to focus on the portal, because Clark Lea had to focus on, am I going to have a job after this week? And so now he's a lot more secure, makes a bowl game, and could, has a chance, legitimate chance, to finish with 8 wins. So they're evaluating some things there, and they're looking ahead at some portal needs, and why not? Quarterback is obviously the number one priority within the portal. I mean, you look at that, and you've got to make some decisions now. Whether to go out and get somebody, that's the decision they have to make, really, right? So what's happening? Okay, so the outcome of Diego Pavia, his lawsuit's gonna dictate a lot of stuff at that position. But they have Drew Dickey, they have Jeremy St. Hilaire, they have Whit Muschamp, they have Nate Johnson, they have Blaise Berlowitz. Okay, there's Washington State quarterback John Mateer that's out there that's going to be in the. He's announced that he's probably going to be in the portal. He's expected to be a transfer guy. So like, there's going to be some shakeup in that quarterback room if Diego Pavia does not come back, if he's not ruled eligible. So, what's Drew Dickey going to do? Like, does he stick around and compete, or is he going to take advantage of an opportunity to go play somewhere else? I don't know what that looks like for him, because, he's good enough to play, and whether or not he gets that opportunity to Vanderbilt remains to be seen. But like, he may not fit into what they want to do schematically. So he may be somebody that just needs to go out there, go somewhere and play, and would not blame him one bit. St. Hilaire was with Muschamp. They're going to get a chance to kind of earn their way a little bit. But, the quarterback position is so fickle in the SEC or just in college football in general, because like, recruiting is just kind of like renting almost at that position, right? A lot of positions are like that, but quarterback especially, like, obviously because you can only play one guy, but like, you're basically like renting and saying, okay, well, what is he gonna bring to the table? Okay, well, he didn't bring much to the table, so okay, well, we're gonna get him into the portal, and we're gonna go get this other guy from the portal, and we're gonna shore up our room. I mean, they have a lot of decisions to make at that position. So I'm curious to see kind of where they go. Do they have a lot of confidence in Diego Pavia coming back? Are they for sure that's going to happen? Are they completely sold on Nate Johnson? I don't know those answers. Diego Pavia's played so well this season, they haven't really had to test that theory. So, that's going to be something that they look at the market and say, okay, who's in the portal right now as quarterbacks? Are they better than what we've got? And then they'll make moves accordingly. But I think they're in a good situation at quarterback. I think they have some guys that can really kind of do some things. It's just going to be when, where, and what's the how does that happen? All right, running backs. Okay, Cedric Alexander, he's coming back. I'll be hard pressed to think he's going to be in the portal. AJ Newberry, is there more of a role for him? I think in some situations there has been, but I think you have to get him more involved. Monty Jones, he's done. Chase Gillespie could be. So you have 2 freshman guys in there that are You have an incoming freshman in Gabe Fields who's committed. You have Johan Cardenas who's redshirted. Guys that could step in and behind Cedric Alexander to make a difference. AJ Newberry is going to be kind of the wild card. I think Monty Jones, obviously, he's gone. He's out of eligibility. He's expired. But Chase Gillespie could be somebody that he's also a wild card. Could be somebody that is out the door as well. Wide receiver, I think you need to figure something out. I don't know if it's through the portal necessarily because you've gone through the portal and haven't been able to find guys. But then again, your NIL potential, your NIL contributions are a lot higher now, and you may not be spending on a quarterback this portal season because of what you got on the roster. And you may be able to go get a superstar receiver if there's one available in the portal. But, you got Junior Sherrill, who's going to be in there. Skinner, Foungy, and Wiley are done with eligibility, so they're going to be out. But you have some guys, Cameron Dixon and LeBron Hill coming in. They could make an impact as freshmen. Those guys are electric. Tristan Brown, Joseph McVeigh have shown a little bit of flash, but they just haven't really gone. Bosky Barrett, Micah Bell are relatively unknowns. They just could be the odd ones left out. Who knows? But they're going to have to figure out something at that position because it's been very disappointing as far as what the output that we've gotten. There's some talent in that room. It's just, how do you get them into the mix? Like, do you, if Diego Pavia is not your quarterback, do you have a quarterback that can throw and be able to run the same option stuff, but be able to throw better than Diego Pavia? Do you have a guy next year that can incorporate these receivers more? Those are decisions that have to be made with this group. So, but we're going to continue this conversation. We're going to look at some portal needs because the offensive line needs some work too. So we'll talk about that next. Are you hungry? Yeah, I'm hungry too, right? Man, nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like an unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. Steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% off gourmet gifts site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages starting at $89.99. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more, save 50% off statewide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with the promo code COLLEGE. That's college, right? And a $30 reward gift card when you shop early. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com. That's OMAHA steaks.com. And an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. Minimum purchases may apply. Omaha! All right, we are back. Welcome back. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. If you need a second listen, which I'm sure you probably do if you're a podcast junkie, make sure you check out Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy. We just dropped the SEC squad for this week. I'm not on it, but I'm on it most of the time. So make sure you check that out. It's a really good show there. And Chris Gordy does a phenomenal job week to week unraveling this mess that is the SEC right now. So check that out. Stephen Willis, Locked On Ole Miss. You don't want to miss that. Like, it's just a good show, regardless of whether you like Ole Miss or not. I think some of these shows are just very entertaining and very good and very informative, despite. I've listened to Locked On Ole Miss. Locked On Bulldogs is a good one. Locked On Auburn. I don't like Auburn at all, but Zach Lackerby does a phenomenal job. Clint Shamlin, which Locked On Bulldogs, obviously. I've been on Locked On ACC. That's a good show. They do a great job there if you're an ACC fan. But there's a lot of good shows in the Locked On Network. They cover the pro sports as well. Locked On Falcons is actually a pretty good show. I'm a Falcons fan. If you've been watching my show, you can tell that I'm a Falcons fan because I wear a Falcons shirt every once in a while. So check out those shows. But anyway, looking at transfer portal needs, right? Here's what Clark Lea had to say. I think what we've learned from the first couple of years of this is, first of all, if you're not participating in it, you don't have a chance. And I feel like we're going to be positioned to have another strong offseason. Okay, I love this quote because they are. They're poised even more to have a great offseason than they were last year because things are more sure. Like, guys weren't jumping on Vanderbilt's bandwagon last year because, let's face it, he was on the hot seat. And nobody wants to come in and be like, well, I'm going to come in to play for this guy. He's going to get fired. I'm going to get a new coach. And who knows if that new coach is going to be good. And I'm going to be back in the portal, like trying to find a new home. And guys ultimately don't want to do that. I know it seems like it sometimes that all guys want to do is just hop in the portal because it's the cool thing to do. But really and truly, guys don't want to do that. They want to find a home, but they just sometimes they go somewhere, the coach gets fired or the situation doesn't work out well for them or whatever the case may be. It just, they end up transferring, 2 or 3 times. But, now that Clark Lea is more sure, and he's definitely not on the hot seat now, I think that's going to bode better for the portal. So he's definitely poised for a better offseason, and he's definitely bought into the fact that he's got to participate in it. And I think they understand at Vanderbilt that, NIL is important. You got to pay guys these days if you want to be good. And I think Vanderbilt's now tasted it. I think this current administration has now said, oh, we can be successful. Oh, let's go, right? They're starting to do it. They did it with basketball too. They started kind of that with they hired Mark Byington. They saw the buzz that Vanderbilt got, that Vanderbilt basketball got with hiring Mark Byington back in the spring. And now the publicity they got from getting a bunch of these portal guys to come in to play basketball for Mark Byington, they saw that buzz and they're like, we'll do that for football. We're all in, right? So it just seems like they're more bought in now to the fact that, or to the notion that, hey, we can actually do this thing called the transfer portal. All right. So we talked about running backs. There's going to be some answers there. They'll probably get a couple portal guys, but running backs, you can find some pretty talented guys, but it's really just who's going to get number 2 carries behind Cedric Alexander next year. Receivers are big time. Got some freshmen coming in, got some freshmen on the roster that are going to be sophomores that will hopefully take those spots, and you're just filling depth roles with guys that are on grad transfers and stuff like that. You need to focus your attention to the offensive line. That need is extremely high. You might have to replace all 5, right? Castillo, Hubbard, and Lasoya are done. Gunnar Hansen could transfer. Chase Mitchell has not played very well. So he could be replacing him. Cade McConnell, Sandoval, Grayson Morgan, Anthony Miles. You don't really have much there on the offensive line, truthfully, and I don't think you have much in the pipeline either. So that's probably where you need to spend all your time. And it's going to be a challenge. So who's going to be out there? That's going to be the position I keep my eye on because I think Pavia is coming back, and I think they have a good enough quarterback situation. Wide receiver, I think you're addressing that through high school recruiting, and it's a lot easier to contribute early as a wide receiver. But this offensive line is going to be very, very tricky. What are they going to do through high school recruiting? How are they going to attack this thing through the portal? I think you've got to get some high profile guys. I think you're going to have to spend some money here. It's just the only way. This is the only way to do it, right? They're going to have to spend money because if they don't, the old adage is going to kick in. You get what you pay for, and they have a chance now that if they go 8-4, like there's going to be some linemen that want to go play in the SEC and live in Nashville and make a pretty penny, right? That's going to happen, and I'd be hard pressed to be like, okay, if I'm an offensive lineman, I have a really good scheme that's going to protect me and not give me loaded boxes and not throw a bunch of defenders at me. We're going to actually be able to have some deception. And I'm going to get to live in Nashville, which is the fastest growing city in the country. What else? Okay, and I'm going to make some money. It's a win-win situation for me, and I think they're going to be able to pull some good guys. There's going to be plenty of playing opportunity and starting opportunity there. So, I like that a lot, actually. I like it a ton. So offensive line is going to be a position of need. It's going to be a position of high need. All right, defensively, edge rushers, I think there's going to be some need. There's going to be some shuffle, but I think with Miles Capers and Corday Sidnor playing well there, Linus Zunk, and they've got some guys that are playing well. They got some high school guys coming in and some freshmen, rising sophomores that are going to be pretty good. So if they can get a superstar guy there, that's always good. But it's not going to be the highest of priority defensively. Interior guys, they're going to be okay there. Maybe get a few depth pieces as you can. Linebacker. You've got Brandon Fontenette, who's, I guess, technically considered a linebacker. Langston Patterson and Brian Longwell. They're coming back. I thought they were out of eligibility. Maybe I'm wrong there. I think they're pretty solid at the linebacker position. They're going to probably add some depth pieces there and get some guys from similar situations. And then corner, I think it's going to be high. Marlon Jones and Mark Davis will come back. Jalen Lackey has played pretty well. Trudell Berry, I think he's on the fence, but he could come back. Colby Taylor, he's probably out, if I had to guess. Safety, I think safety is going to be high. CJ Taylor and DeRicky Wright are gone. Dante Carter's going to take over. Marlon Sewell, Carson Lawrence, Maurice Hampton. They just need to add some guys. And some of that is going to be through high school. I think they can add high school guys to this group. And then the specialist, of course, you just got to be ready for that position. So I think, overall, Vandy's in decent shape at most positions defensively to be able to add some depth pieces. And, maybe if there's a superstar out there that you want to go get, like an edge guy or a corner or, a high profile type guy that hits the portal and you feel like you have a chance at it, by all means, go get it because you need some star power. And you can never have too many edge guys. Ole Miss has proved that with what they got in Walter Nolan and Prince Unmiamalelin. Nailed it. And then, South Carolina has their two edge guys. So, you could always use edge guys. So, that being said, Vandy has some pretty good games coming up against two teams that I think are winnable games for Vandy. We're going to take a look at what those games look like next. All right, well, get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5. You get $150 in bonus bets if you win. And I'm going to show you some picks here in just a second. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Okay, welcome back. We're wrapping up the show. Got a few minutes left here in this last bye-week edition of the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Gonna sprint to the finish of the season, figure out what bowl game Vandy's going to go to. It's going to determine these next two games, and we're going to take a brief sneak peek at the next two games, the next two opponents, and what they are facing this week. Obviously for Vanderbilt offensively, they got to continue to develop that identity and develop a passing game because that's what you're going to need to be successful down the stretch run of this season and on into your future, because Diego Pavia he's out of eligibility either this year or next. And so you got to continue to do your thing in the passing game. So you got to continue to develop. So here I'm just going to have to throw these up here. Okay, these are presented by FanDuel. This is an extended FanDuel read, I guess. All right. Here's my 3 picks for this week. All right. Texas, who Vandy's already played, they're 16.5-point favorites. I think that line may be updated. But if you took it at 16.5, you probably would end up taking Arkansas. If this line drops at all, I would look to take Texas as that line falls. But Texas is just going to overwhelm Arkansas. I think Arkansas is a really good team. I think Texas is just going to be better, and they're just going to overwhelm them like they tend to do. They've had a horrible schedule, simple wise, but this could, I can see the arguments of this being a tricky game, but Texas sees the finish line, and they're going to do everything in their power to make sure they maintain that their status up until they get to the Texas A&M game, which I think that game is going to be tricky. So LSU, that's Vandy's opponent next week. They get a warm-up game against Florida. Now, for LSU, they can't defend a running quarterback. And I don't know if DJ Lagway is going to be back. He's had a hamstring issue. But he is they're thinking he might be back. I don't know. But LSU has had problems with running quarterbacks. They couldn't stop Miller. They couldn't stop Marcel Reed. They just couldn't handle they just could not handle running quarterbacks. And Diego Pavia is going to present problems, and I'll talk about that next week. But LSU they're a weird team. Okay? They're a weird team because they play so well against Ole Miss. And that might have been just a case where they just got way up for that game, right? But then they get their butts handed to them by Texas A&M. They get their butts handed to them last week against Alabama. And it's just Alabama just hasn't looked good all year. I think Vandy broke them, honestly. And then they come back out against LSU and say, okay, yeah, we're Bama. I hope you guys didn't forget that. And Jalen Miller was like, yeah, I can run the ball. And they did. And that game wasn't close. But I do think LSU wins that one. They're favored by 4. I do think they win. I do think they cover against Florida. Florida's just so decimated with injuries. I don't think there's much Florida can do. They're going to play hard. They obviously play hard for Billy Napier. I don't really think that he is the right fit for the Florida Gators as the head coach, but those guys do play well for him, and he does recruit well. So he's got that going for him. I don't know about the in-game stuff, and I think he's a little, I just don't think he's a good fit. All right, but that's LSU. I think LSU is just kind of in if they lose this game for some reason, they're on quit watch, right? As Steve put it on SEC After Dark with us, they're on quit watch. So be on the lookout for that. If they lose this game or play poorly in this game against Florida, this leaves the door open for Vandy to really make some noise next week down in Baton Rouge. And then you want to see a place ignite. Let Vandy win that game and see what happens to Brian Kelly after that. They're not going to be happy losing to Vanderbilt, even though Vanderbilt's good. They're not going to like the stigma of, hey, Vanderbilt came into Death Valley and beat us. They're not going to like that. They're not going to dig that. So, and then the last game against Tennessee, well, this is also a team that, I don't know, they're in the top 10, right? They're playing really, really good football right now, but they're also a team that they've just kind of got it done, And not all their games have been overly impressive. Nico struggled at times, but what they've done a really good job of is playing defense and finding ways to put points on the board and finding ways to win this game. They've been extremely stingy on defense. I think this week they're going up against Georgia, which is not a great matchup for them. I think these are two teams that are very similar in how they're playing right now, which they have really talented quarterbacks that are very skittish right now, both of them. They're not seeing the field well. They're making throws that they think they can make that they can't. They're not good enough at this current moment to carry their respective teams, and they're both just struggling. So something's got to give here, right? Georgia is super talented on defense. They're just not vibing. And Tennessee is very talented on defense, and that defense is carrying this team. And Tennessee's record is what it is because of this defense. But Georgia just got their butts kicked against Ole Miss, and so they're looking for a little redemption at home. It's a 9.5-point game, which is kind of a wide spread for this. And I think they come out on top on that. But Vandy's going to have their hands full with this defense, another fast, talented defense. But they could be if they get knocked off by Georgia, they could be in a mode where they just kind of shut it down because they're not in the playoff, and that could be kind of like a new thing in college football where if you don't make the playoff, you kind of just throttle down and it doesn't really matter. So that's those are my picks. That's kind of where I stand. I know I had that graphic up for a long time and you didn't get to see this wonderful face of mine, but anyway, this bye week will hopefully has been restful for Vandy. I think 20 guys have not practiced and are recovering. They've been evaluating the roster. They've been developing some of the younger guys, which has been great. Maybe they'll find somebody that can be integrated into this passing game. Maybe they'll find something on offense that they can do to kind of counterbalance. Like, hey, when teams start to figure you out, that's when you strike with other things to kind of get yourself back on track to what you want to do. And they got to find that. Defensively, I think they just got to get healthy, find ways to tackle in space, and just make teams work, which they did a good job early against South Carolina doing that. They just fell apart. So anyway, we'll see you back here next week. We'll start to preview LSU, and we'll start the stretch run of the season. We'll get into bowl season, portal season, talking a little hoops after that, and then it'll be full blast for 2025. And then we'll get it back. We'll get it back on track. This show's better than ever. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for finding us. Keep finding us. Keep getting other people. Bring other people with you. Got to get to 1,000. Want to get to 1,000 as quickly as I possibly can. And we'll see you back here next time on the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Anchor down. Behave yourselves. Have fun this weekend. Be good. Peace.